Celeste.
All right, first off, I want to thank my friend Steve Sheets, a lifelong friend. He put the sheets in Elwood City, so I've got my coffee and it's all good in my neighborhood. Listen, this is one video that I've been wanting to do for a very long time because of her family, her namesake, her mother, her father, the Feast of the Seven Fishes show, Mama Celeste, that great tavern in Monaco on Pennsylvania Avenue. This is Toni Celeste, who now works for the Rochester Borough. Her sister's down there with Dale Nine, his son, and Homer Nine and Son, so it's all familiar. And we, of course, are getting ready for the Feast of the Seven Fishes show, which is going to be broadcast at the Coons Market on McKnight Road. I've been doing it for over 30 years. Manja, everyone's invited. But now we're going to talk old world recipes. We're going to talk her family, the history, that tavern, Monaco, and more. But in Elwood City, and I just said to her moments ago, can you imagine the business that your father would have been in this great Italian community if he had a Celeste Tavern in Elwood City?
It would be amazing.
They would have loved the guy.
Yes, they would have. Yes, they would have. Yes. He was a fantastic guy.
Talk about your mom and dad a little bit, and then we'll get into your grandmother and your dad and the time in the bar. Tell me their story. How'd they meet?
My mom and dad met, actually it was through cousins. My mom was in West Virginia, and my cousin took him to West Virginia to meet her, and they hit it off really well. She actually is the one that taught him how to speak English.
Really?
Because he knew no English when he came here. None.
And where did he come from in Italy?
Picentro, Italy.
Okay.
Yes.
That's why I have that picture that he gave me in the frame of Picentro. That was from Toni.
Yes. I actually have one in the living room of the neighborhood he's from. It's in color in there. It's really pretty. So they just hit it off, and that was that.
Love at first sight.
Pretty much, yes.
So this bar, which is legendary, and I must tell you, when I first came to Monaco in the early 90s, he was one of the very first people that befriended me, he and Mama Celeste, and I was a bachelor, so they were always cooking something special. Mm-hmm. And when you came into that bar, even if you didn't have the money in your pocket, he'd feed you.
He did. You were family.
Yeah, and
yes.
We spent a lot of time together. As a matter of fact, one of the very first times I did a sports talk show on the radio on location, it was at his place. But the stories he would tell, the flag football teams that he would sponsor, my family, my friends, they would congregate to this place. There was not a stool in the place. Everybody stood. Basically, it was just beer and good food. But the food to this day, I've never seen it duplicated anywhere. In that little kitchen. How did she do all that?
Me neither. My grandma, of course, came here off the boat also. Mm-hmm. She came actually before my dad and his brothers came here. And she owned a bakery first.
Where at?
Right in downtown Monaco, near the river. And she had that for a very long time. My dad worked in J&L at the tin mill. And I cannot remember the guy's name that actually was selling the bar. My father and his brother Carlo decided to buy it. So they bought the bar, and then my grandma said, well, you know what, I'll cook for you guys. And she just brought all her old Italian recipes to the bar. I mean, she'd make homemade gnocchis. I mean, she made a sausage treat that was so good. My dad would make the homemade sausage, homemade meatballs, you know, the sauce.
This stuff was legendary.
Yes, it was. Chicken gizzards, which people today still ask me for my dad's recipe, and I do have it. And then his latte vie.
Yeah, oh.
Yeah, which I used to call latte kill ya.
Do you still have that?
I do have his recipe for that. I do.
We can maybe make a quick bottle for the holidays.
And then my grandma would also make ricotta pie.
Yeah.
Which was so good. And even my cousin Thelma to this day will ask me, what was in that? What was in that? And I would try, and I can't duplicate it. I mean, I know what was in it, but it's not the same.
She was far from 5 foot tall.
Oh, yeah, she was itty bitty.
Yeah, but she was powerful. And when your dad and her would go back and forth, it was priceless. I mean, it was like reality TV. It was a sitcom. But he loved her so much.
Oh, he did.
I mean, and the thing about your dad, and I want people to understand this, I love Toni Celeste. Toni Celeste was all about community. Toni Celeste gave away so much food, free drinks, sponsorships, was the shoulder for people to lean on, to cry on. He lifted you up when you were down. He was more than a saloon owner. He was a family member. He was friends. And anybody who patronized that place more than once, whatever you needed, even if it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and many times we were there till 2, he always got it done, helped you.
Yes, he did. And he taught me that. I'm very, very much like my father.
That's why she let me come out here and say, no, but I don't think there'll ever be, in my lifetime, a family like that. And I'm sure a lot of people in Monaco are watching this right now, Mr. Manalakis and that great family and so many others. And it's taking them back to that flag football era, to those Sunday nights, the holidays, and people just coming in to eat dinner after a day at work. Yep. I mean, that's the type of place this was. You would just eat dinner like you were in your own kitchen.
It was always so nice because even after like the Monaco football games, when they still had their own team, between like halftime, people would rush in there and just talk and have a drink and then they'd leave. Or when people were getting married across the street at the St. John's Church, they would come over and see my dad and just talk to him, and then they would rush back over to the church. It was very nice. And
listen, I know that sign is somewhere, Mr. Manalakis. Thank you for hanging on to that. But that place was carved out of history. I mean, when you think of the bar and those stools and that little kitchen, and it was just a little cubby hole.
Yes, it was.
But the more people that were in there, the more friendlier and comfortable it seemed. I mean, shoulder to shoulder, skin on skin. You just felt at home.
You're right. And even like Thanksgiving and Christmas, my grandma would go down there and cook a meal for those that had nowhere to go. Every holiday she did that.
Is that where that all came from, your dad?
Yes.
Generosity?
Yes.
And if you would meet him on the street and you didn't know who he was, in his shorts and his t-shirt and his flip-flops, he was just a common man.
Yes, he was.
And he really became a real estate, not magnate, but he owned a number of homes. He had that wonderful bar. He was an entrepreneur, a businessman. Explain this to me. How can so many people come to this country? And being that we're talking the Feast of the Seven Fishes, many of my Italian friends, and we'd be here all night, that their parents couldn't speak English, couldn't even sign their name. And I'll give you another example. Dominic Lucy, who had the Silver Bar, which is now the Monaco Draft House. His father could only make an ex, befriended an Italian who was an attorney. He ended up owning half of the street where that bar is on Pennsylvania Avenue, and had a bar that was second to none, that when they basically remodeled it in 1960, nobody had ever seen anything like that. And talk about family. Dominic was a teacher, went to Geneva College, was teaching at Monaco. His father, one night at the kitchen table, could not get up. He was getting older. So Dominic gave up his teaching career, went next door, literally through one door into the bar, and that's where he spent the rest of his life till the day he died. Yeah. That's the type of loyalty these families are all about.
It is, and especially like my dad, I think he only went to it was either 7th or 9th grade.
Smart guy.
But he was so good at business and math. He could add things in his head so quickly, it just amazed me. I'm like, how do you know that? And he's like, because he just added up. He just knew. He knew. Very, very business savvy.
Listen, he was a friend to me, okay? He was a buddy. He was a pal. He was your dad. Mm-hmm. And I know what my dad was like. Did he demand respect, excellence? What was he like as a father?
He was hard on us. Of course, he raised 3 girls.
But you've all turned out to be.
Exactly. We all turned out very good, very successful, very happy. Very people-oriented, but like the 3 of us girls, I am probably more like him than the other 2.
I can see that.
Business-wise, making friends, personality, I'm so my father. It's not even funny.
Well, when I mentioned Nick Manalakis, I have such respect for his father and what he's done.
Yes.
I mean, I would see him pedaling his bike in the neighborhood, and I would say, do people have any idea? A lot like your father. They were kind of cut from the same cloth.
Right.
What this man did, who was an immigrant, what he accomplished, and now his son and others and his beautiful bride and all the people involved carry on that great name, they really kind of kept Monaco up and running.
Yes, they did.
When Monaco was going through a tough time, right?
Yeah, and Nick's father just recently passed away.
Right.
And God bless him, and great family.
The best.
Yes. And, I agree. They worked hard. They really, really worked hard to get to where they needed to be. Nothing was handed to them.
But they loved to do what
they
do.
did.
And they were fearless.
Yes.
And
Very
I
much
think we
so.
should all live our life that way. Let's talk about the Feast of the Seven Fishes. Now, I don't know if your family was all in on that, because
yes.
I got to believe your dad was working that late shift at the bar. Christmas Eve is a big night. One of the things that I remember about Christmas Eve in Monaco, you would go into the silver bar. Dominic would give everybody a box of Rosalind's candy. In fact, he bought so much Rosalind's candy, he got a corporate discount. Jim Crudden gave him a corporate discount because he just bought so much. Give him a pack of cigarettes, Lucky Strikes, whatever. Free drink, bumping a beer. Your dad always doing the same thing. Food was out. But as far as the actual 7 fishes, did you all do that?
We did that at home.
Yes.
Yes, we did. And it was every tradition, every Christmas Eve we did that.
What do you remember about that?
My mother yelling because the house smelled like fish.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, and like to this day, I love smelts. Love them. And everybody else was like, ew. And I'm like, no, they're really good. And like the baklava, I remember it being so salty.
Did you do the eel, or was that
No, we did not do the eel.
octopus?
Octopus, yes. We did the calamari, we did the shrimp, the baklava, we did the smelts, and I can't remember the other. Mussels,
Yes.
clams. Yes.
Thank you, John.
Yes, John,
significant other.
thank you. And then I can't remember the other one we did.
Well, listen, do you understand that the Feast of the Seven Fishes, McKnight Road, Coons Market, you're more than welcome, you and your significant other, to stop out. Frank Dentisi, who hosts the Coons Cooking Hour with me, and by the way, this Sunday, we'll have that show on location as well. We're going to do all the seafood stuff, and they've got the best selection of seafood at all 8 of those locally owned and independently operated Coons Markets. And how do you find the one nearest you? CoonsMarket.com. But he makes the most incredible schmelts. And up until this show, I have never had them. They
Never.
melt in
Yes,
your
they do.
mouth.
I love them. I love them. I've loved them since I was a kid. Clams was the other. Clams.
Have you guys seen the Netflix movie that was in the theaters a couple of years ago, The Feast of the Seven Fishes?
I was just telling John about that today.
I
heard
saw it
was
the other
really
day,
good.
and for me to sit still more than 5 minutes, it was absolutely incredible. It's true. I think it can become as popular as The Wonderful Life. I think it'll have a great tradition moving forward. But you've got to sit down with your family, and it'll also give you an understanding about this show that I do and why it's so significant in the Italian community.
Right.
Because a lot of those villages were fishing villages.
Right.
And so that's what they did. But the preparation, but your grandmother, and I'm sure your mother and you and your sisters, but your grandmother did that every day,
Yes,
that type
she
of
did.
prep work.
Yes, she did. Every day she would go to that bar early in the morning, start prepping. By lunchtime, she had everything done. You know, my dad was there, and they would take the orders and just all day long. And it was all the spaghetti, the meatballs. He made his own hot sausage, mild sausage, the sausage treats and the meatball treats. Those were good. And boy, everybody just loved those.
How do you stay in such shape with all this food?
Because I don't eat that anymore.
Well, but there's some sauce and some Tupperware out there.
Yeah, we did. We had ravioli tonight.
Go get that real quick.
Yeah, John and I are big Italian eaters. We love.
Walk over there, please, while I talk here real quick. Listen, I do want to say this before we put some food on the table. To my friend, Mr. Manolakis, of course, he was an inspiration. He was a true entrepreneur in every sense of the word. His son means absolutely so much to me that I do want to send out my thoughts and prayers. And know this, Nick, you have a friend in me. I'm now a part of Monaco's landscape until I have no breath left in my body. And your father, every time I would see him on that Schwinn bicycle going by my front door, it gave me a reason to get up and continue to push forward. So to your family from your Pratt Pack, my sympathy, and know this, that man will live in my heart and my mind for the rest of my time on this earth. He was everything that I wanted to be growing up, someone who could actually make a difference in a community. And when you think about what he was able to do with how he started and where he came from, there is no excuse for any of us in this country to not be able to accomplish things that have been given to us, our birthright, because of people like Mr. Manolakis. So to his family, from my family, thoughts and prayers. Now, look, when I think of this community, meaning Elwood City, I have so many friends here, a lot of very close friends of Italian heritage. This Feast of the Seven Fishes show for decades and generations was being prepared here in this community, holiday after holiday. And that's why we do it and why it's become such a big deal. But let me stress again, it's for everybody in all your traditions. Come on over here. Now, I'm not going to eat this, but I want to show you. This is the type of stuff that she does. Explain this a little bit to the
Oh,
audience.
that is ravioli
it smells
with
so
a homemade
good.
meat sauce
Oh.
and Parmesan cheese over top.
Now listen, let me tell you how hardcore she is. I said, I can pick up a few things one day from Coons Market, and she said, I'm sure they're good, but I like to do things from scratch. Are you really that much of a diehard?
I do make homemade meatballs quite a bit. I do make homemade gnocchis. I can even do pierogies.
Have you ever done polenta?
No, I have not.
That was one of the things that Dominic Lucy used to tell me about. Because
I do like polenta.
his mother passed. His father basically went back to the old country, and basically through an arrangement, family, he found the next mother. Wow. They all went to the train station. She got off. That became a part of their family, and they stayed married happily ever after. But he would tell me stories about being a kid, how they would roll it out on the table, the dough,
yes,
and the sauce, and they would basically, when it was done, it would stay on the table, and they would use knife and fork and eat it right off the table.
Oh, I love making homemade gnocchis though.
Tell me, how do you make those?
It's basically you take like a mashed potato
Or
potato flakes,
Okay.
and then you put eggs in the middle and flour. You almost make like a circle, and then you I guess blend it all together.
Yeah, knead it,
yes. And then you roll it out, and then you cut it, and then you put your fork in it, and then you put them in the freezer and freeze them.
You even
And Parmesan cheese.
You even got the dishes. I mean, you're like, no wonder this guy loves you. You cook a lot?
I do. I try to, yes.
But how have you maintained this young figure of yours? I mean, if I would be around this food every day, it could be, they say about portion controls, and you just have to eat smart. How do you manage to negotiate this type of food
that's
and look like this?
That's a whole other story.
Is it exercise? Is it portions? Because
it's actually portions. Because 2 years ago, there was I had a pocket of fluid in my stomach
right.
that they had to remove, and when they got in there was a mass behind there, so they had to remove 40% of my stomach.
Oh, so you can only eat so
I can only eat so much. Although I was never heavy.
Mm-mm.
I was just pretty normal, normal sized girl.
Right.
But trust me, I still eat my pasta. Love it. I can't get rid of it.
I still think listen, we had pasta 2-3 times a week growing up as a kid. Rigatoni, ravioli, lasagna, spaghetti. It was always a part of our life. Pizza. Let's just finish on pizza here real quick. Of all the pizza, and there are some ones that I love. D&G I grew up on. I just have to have it. And there are others too. What does a good pizza consist of to you? And I love anchovies on my pizza. I have friends who will do nothing in the way of anchovies. I love them. I was dating a girl in Freedom, Pennsylvania years ago. Her grandmother, Italian, made anchovy cakes for Christmas to die for, melt in your mouth. But your pizza, what's a perfect pizza to you, Toni Celeste?
I love mushrooms.
Yes.
Sausage.
Yes.
And pepperoni and lots of cheese. That's my favorite, yes.
So Latte V.
Love Latte V.
Before we go, and I got to tell you, the Monaco Sons of Italy, where I would see your dad from time to time, and I wish I could have one more with them there. I haven't been there in a while since the pandemic. They closed a little too early by the time I get off KDK radio. But that was my home away from home. Absolutely love it. Truly one of the greatest social halls anywhere. They've got one here in Elwood City, Sons of Italy. Love them, love them, love them. But when it comes to Latte V, this is something that is made, kind of like a lot of people make their own wine. But I was introduced to it about 10 years ago, and of course it took me back to your father, what I used to call it jet fuel. But explain to the audience who may have never heard before, what is Latte V?
Oh, Latte V, which I call Latte Kilia, has, I believe 7 different alcohols in it. Cherry juice. It's almost like snow cone juice.
Yes.
Like cherries, yes. And maraschino cherries. And then you just mix all the grains, and I know it has, what's it called? What's the grain?
Pomegranate.
Not pomegranate.
Alcohol? Pure?
Yes,
okay. Pure
grain.
Right.
Which probably has the most in it.
But you know what I remember the most about your dad? He would always like this, okay? And he'd be talking to you, so he could listen closely, and if you had to tell him a secret, you could get closer to his ear, and he'd go, I got something. Little tiny glass, reach underneath. Because they didn't serve whiskey there.
No.
No, just beer.
Right.
But, you know, anyway, boom. I got to tell you, I felt so privileged to have a drink with this guy. He was like royalty to me. And I just always wanted to be like him, act like him, and obviously it didn't turn out like him because he was a heck of a lot more successful. But why do you think all these years later I would drive clear out to here after working all day because I just wanted to spend time with you to reconnect to that family?
Right.
What was it about this guy that so many people love? A lot like Mr. Manuel.
Because he touched your heart.
He did.
He was true. He was real. He was genuine.
Yeah, good or bad, whether you liked
Yes.
it or not, he told you the
He
truth.
told you the truth.
Of all the things that your grandmother made, and we'll end on this note, she had, I mean, there were at least 5 favorite, 10 favorite. What was it that people just had to have? I mean, obviously the meatballs were classic.
I was going to say the meatballs, her sauce, anything with the spaghetti, the gnocchis, the sausage treat and those meatball treats. People just love those.
What do you miss about the whole family? I know. Listen, I have a tough time. I mean, my parents have been gone a while. My kids are grown. I get it. I've had better days when it comes to romance. We've all been there, done that. But it was just such a difference back then. People gathered. You never really went anywhere. You were always with family. I mean, I had Sunday dinner at my grandmother's house till I was 26.
Right. Well, being Italian, you're very, very family oriented. Everything is about the family.
It is.
And my father was the glue to the family. And I think I missed that because, I mean, we're still all connected and together, but he made sure that we stayed that way.
Are you doing your best to do that?
I try.
I feel sometimes I've let them down because it was the glue as far as my family.
Right.
But sadly, when parents die, it's just something happens.
It separates. You separate. You tend to.
Well, guess what you did? You kind of reconnected me tonight. So
Right.
thank you so much for letting me come here.
Oh, you're so welcome.
And you work for the Rochester Borough.
I do.
That's pretty cool.
I do. I love my
A
job.
lot of good things happening in Rochester.
Yes, there is.
I actually was over at the Fry Glass exhibit. I went over to the Historical Society. They've got the holiday train layout. There's some really cool
That's
things.
my office is right in there.
That's right. It's the
Yeah,
photo building.
yes. I mean, on the second floor, that fry glass, the train.
And that, listen, the Fry Glass,
Beautiful.
it will compete with any museum in the country.
Yes, it will.
And I also say, if I could come back again and be your father, the bar that I would open, Hilltop.
Yes.
Steak salads.
Steak salads.
First date, that's where you always went.
Yep.
That
Isn't
was
that
one of the
true?
great,
Wow.
one of the greatest bars ever. But there will never be a saloon owner. There will never be a tavern. There will never be memories that Toni Celeste created ever happen again. Why? It has nothing to do with reinventing the wheel. He was just that special.
He was a fantastic dad, a bar owner, friend. I can't even tell
Did he
you.
ever wear long pants?
He did
Did
in
he?
winter. That was the only time.
Okay.
Yes.
Always had
Yes.
them shorts on.
He did. He did.
I loved him. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
It was a real
I'm
pleasure.
so glad you came.
Listen, me too. I love Elwood and I love coming out here. And anyway, I was teasing you. This is how your dad would be so grateful how I've grown as an adult. Because I used to throw money around like it was being printed. Get everybody one, do this, do that. I actually told her, I said, I'm on my way. I'm in Elwood using my free car wash coupon
Yes,
that I
you
got
did.
after an oil change at McElwain. Have a great night. Don't forget the Feast of the Seven Fishes. We're in our 30th plus year. It starts right after local news at 9, Coons Market, McKnight Road. And for everything for your Feast of the Seven Fishes and your celebration with your familia, all 8 locally owned and independently operated Coons Markets. How do you find the one nearest you? Click on coonsmarket.com. For Toni Celeste, it's Rob Pratt. Ciao and make the most of this holiday. Good night, everybody.